Welcome, ladies, to the Real Estate InvestHER Show, providing inspiration, strategies, and insight to empower women investors to live balanced and financially free lives. Now, here are your co-hosts, Liz and Andresa.
Welcome back, ladies. This is Liz.
And this is Andresa.
Welcome back to the Real Estate InvestHER Show, mini-sode edition. I am going to be talking about the power of knowing what brings you joy. And it's actually more important than you actually think.
Ooh, I don't know about that because we didn't talk about it. So I have no clue what she's going to say.
So here's the deal. I know Andresa always likes to start us with, here's the deal. And here's really what it comes down to. So many women in our community, right? Andresa, in our Strive community, the women that participate in InvestHER Con, the women that are literally just part of our meetups across the country. I mean, all these women, right? Hundreds of thousands of women that we have the honor of connecting with, of leading and interacting with at events. I connect and chat with so many of them. And so often what's missing in their voice, what's missing in maybe what's not working for them is this lack of joy. They don't know that, but that's really what comes up for me when I'm talking with folks. And what brought this on and why I wanted to talk about joy, because we put joy as like, I want all financial freedom. I want this, I want that in my life. And then that's going to give me joy and happiness. And it's the other way around. You know, what's bringing us joy today and our daily life is going to create the abundance that we want, the financial freedom we want. It's not the other way around. It's not a means to an end necessarily. So here's what kind of sparked this and why I think it's so important. I was talking to a very successful investor, woman that's very active in our community. I'm not going to use her name, but she's very active, very, very successful, has quite a bit of a portfolio. And we're chatting and talking. And she was talking a little bit about some struggles and frustrations she was having in her business. Very large business, has grown very quickly as well. And as she was talking, she wasn't asking me about joy at all. She was actually asking me more of a technical thing around her team and some key things. And she was like, I really need support here around this. I said, can I ask you something? She's like, of course, that's why I'm bringing this to you. I said, do you have a sense of joy with what you're doing? She's like, I didn't think of that. I don't know that. I don't know the answer to that. So what then that led me to think, Andresa, to say, okay, do we really know what brings us joy? Because so many times, right, we have this, we know we want to buy that next rental. We know we want to do that next flip. We know we enjoy real estate. Of course, that's why you're listening to our podcast. But in all of that, what really brings you joy? And beyond your business, what brings you joy in your personal life? I want to give a very specific and tangible exercise to give to all of you to actually explore this. Because if I actually polled, I think 10 women, Andresa, and even more successful women, the more successful, the better for this exercise. And I said, how much joy do you experience on a daily basis?
You think like the more success, less joy?
I think that definitely can be a connection. Because then I think it depends, right? I think we can get very success oriented. We can get very goal oriented, and we miss sometimes. I mean, I'll just speak personally. I can miss the joy in the process. I can miss the joy in what we're doing. The busier I sometimes am, the joy sometimes gets a little missed, and I don't have that in the moment of working very hard. I don't know. What comes up for you?
No, I think there's a connection that, because I think that when real estate becomes transactional, I get bored.
Yeah.
And bored, there's no joy in it, right? If you tell me, okay, let's rehab another single family property, I pass in front of another one another day. And I was like, I can tell you how the layout's going to be inside.
I think that's for you in general, Andresa. I think business in general, if it's too
bored.
Repetitive, you get bored. You need new things. You do.
I need development. I enjoy having new things, new challenges. So I get excited about it. In terms of relationships, I enjoy quality time. I certainly don't have any joy when it's a superficial or egocentric conversation.
So that brings you joy.
Yes.
So, I think just quickly before I get into the exercise, I actually looked up what joy meant.
I was going to say, what does it mean to you? Because I might be interpreting the word joy in English completely wrong.
Yeah. I mean, according to, Webster, it's a feeling of great pleasure and happiness. And I think that's really true. When I feel joyful about something I'm doing, person I'm with, just being, I do feel a sense of pleasure, right? There's a pleasure, there's a happiness, there's a sense of being completely present. And it's just making you smile. I think it's really simple.
I would go one step further now that I'm thinking. I get emotional, like a state of gratitude of feeling that way, that I'm emotional and super grateful to be experiencing that moment, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Because you know how different that moment is compared to the other moments.
Yes.
And I think that's the key here. And that's the exercise, or the kind of the action step that I recommended to my friend. I said, for 1 week, write down every moment of joy. Any moment you have that is a joy feeling, personally, professionally, for 1 week, write it down. Because the next part of that step process, and I gave her a due date, is to actually start to analyze that. That is exactly what Andresa and I did. I'm going to be very, I'll just say this very quickly, but her and I, when we were exploring 4 years ago, what do we jump into first? A podcast? Should we do an event? We really knew we wanted to empower women. We knew we wanted to do that in one way first. And we weren't sure what to start with. And her and I developed this. We've developed so many things together. I don't remember who did what, but we developed this, we created it, and then we completed it. Like we were like two little students with our own exercise.
That's right.
And it was actually called Analyzing Fulfilling Moments. I think it could be called Analyzing Joyful Moments. And what we did is we brainstormed all the events of our life, from childhood to, all the events that stand out in your mind. And you start to say, what was the event? What role did you have? Why did this bring you joy? Why did this bring you excitement? And her and I both did this separately. And then the last question of that process was, once you identify these events, what feeling did you have? And usually it's a sense of joy, fulfillment, feeling like time goes by really fast, those kinds of feelings. So her and I did this separately. We literally wrote out all these events. I don't remember all the events we shared. And through that conversation, the bottom line was that we both noticed and got present to, we loved being inspired and we loved inspiring other people.
Yes, that's the bottom line. Yes.
And what's fascinating, so we said, let's start with a podcast, because that's exactly what a podcast does. We're interviewing women to inspire women listening, and we're being inspired by connecting with these women. So we were very intentional. It wasn't like, hey, let's start a podcast. We have nothing to do. It was extremely intentional from the perspective of analyzing what was joyful to us. So I recommend that to everyone listening. I think the key here is that women work so hard. They're successful. They're making things happen. But are we happy and joyful? And I would question that for a lot of women, especially women who have created their own success in their own way. I think maybe it's a stage of life, but joy is really important.
Yeah.
Really, really important. The energy I'm going to spend anything professionally or personally not every moment, right? Mm-hmm. Certain things in the business, right? You're like, oh, am I completely joyful about this? But in and of itself, right? There's a lot of joy. And I take it for granted, because then I'm talking to people. I'm like, well, aren't you joyful about that? Like, I never thought of that. It's not even on the radar. It's not even a priority.
It's not. And I think that society also established that is not quote unquote proper for adults to have fun in different ways. And I was listening to Mel Robbins' podcast, which I'm a big fan. She was talking about it, like the wagon of fun, that she's like, let's do it. And what she said is that when you are by yourself, she used the example of like a dance floor in a wedding, right? The first person that goes to the dance floor, we're like, oh, Jesus, that's ridiculous, right? That's ridiculous. You have no sense of rhythm or what the hell you're doing. Then a second person goes. Then a third person goes. And then you start thinking, should I go? And then when more people go, you're like, I'm missing out this. Let me go and have fun.
Yeah.
So she was tying up like, it's easier to start having more fun when you're not doing it alone, that you have a community that you can have fun across the board. And that's why I think that you and I, Liz, everything that we do is like, okay, we're doing different types of events. We are doing a meetup or investor con or anything that we do. Okay, what is the fun in it as well? Because women don't have the chances, right? I remember Investor Con 2022, where the last event was a party. We did a dance party, and women stay on the dance floor for 2 hours. You try to brag the DJ.
I try to give him an extra tip. Like, can we just stay another hour? This is fun.
We went over an hour, and still you're like, I want another hour. So So we're gonna change that. But women were having so much fun. We were having a blast there, right? So I think that we need to bring that more into our lives.
Yeah. So the takeaway here is, on your path to financial freedom, on your path on this journey of life, right, which is what we stand for, not just achieving to achieve or for money's sake, but doing it in a way that serves you, mentally, emotionally, all the senses, thinking about and being reflective on what brings you joy in your business, in your personal life. And the more crystal clear you are on what brings you joy, the more you're going to have joyful moments. It's not going to be like, I'm going to do this so I can be joyful. I think it's the opposite. And so I would highly recommend you to do that task for 1 week, just like we do a time journal or a food journal. It's really helpful and introspective to be like, where's my time being spent? What am I eating? That kind of thing. We'll do a joy journal, do a joy kind of audit, if you will, and then look at, okay, what moments brought me joy? And at that end of the week, start to look at, what were the consistencies? Was it a person? Was it a way of being? Was it something I was doing? Was I listening? Was I talking? Was I analyzing? Was I helping? And I guess clarity will come from that exercise. So I want to recommend everyone to do that. And we'd love to hear from you with these minisodes and our interviews. What's coming up for you? What are you getting? Please share in our Facebook community, tag us. We'd love to hear what is landing for you and how are you using this.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Thanks so much for listening. Ciao.
If you enjoyed this podcast and want to receive updates on our next interviews, go to our website, therealestateinvestor.com. There, you can subscribe to our show, become part of our investor community, and get updates on upcoming episodes.
If you like our show, please share it with other women who would benefit. And don't forget to leave us a rating on iTunes. We'd really appreciate it. And as always, we encourage you to take one action as a result of today's show and put it into motion so you can live both a financially free and balanced life. Thanks for spending time with us.
Ciao.